So this is what I would say about the double standards. Training boys and training girls different. Well, number one, they at odds with each other. Uh, I recently had a conversation with my wife where she had she showed resentment against her father because all of the boys were able to bring in girls, have sleepovers, do all these stuff, and the daughters weren't able to. So it was a confusion. Secondly, uh, if I have uh, 2 to 3 daughters that I'm raising, and a man that's down the street has 2 to 3 sons that he's raising, and he's telling him, "Hey, look, I want y'all to go out there, get it out of your system, do what you gotta do, sow your royal oats, go and bust them down." And I'm telling my daughters to be chaste, protect their purity and their sense of, self-worth. And I know that this man down the street is teaching his sons that. I would look at that as a declaration of offense to me because basically he's doing is sending a signal out that I know you're going to teach your daughters to be pure, but I am raising my children up to be able to break those boundaries. To me, that's households declaring war on each other, and that's just my thought on it. I think it's wrong. And what I believe in spiritually, there's no indication that men and women were taught different things. Everyone was abiding by the word, and they looked at it as a standard that they were on accord with. And I'll just yield right there. If anybody else want to say something from Viz or Sweeney.
Now we're gonna go ahead and go to the other side.
Oh, you can go to the other side then.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Marcus. Like you wanted to go ahead and respond.
No, I was asking because I know it was a video recently. I didn't even watch it. I just heard about how inflammatory it was, so I was hoping to get a first eye view of it. But I guess the declaration of war is as close as we're gonna get to it, right? Um, yeah, boys and girls are not the same. They're just not. I'm not teaching my daughter to go out and date around and see what she likes and all that. That's not what I'm doing because she's not supposed to be experienced and comparative and knowledgeable. And I would prefer for her to be as chaste and pure as possible for her process. I also wouldn't want her boyfriend to be the same age. So if she was to get married at 19, 20, I would want her man to be 25, 26. Adversely, I want my son to be 25, 26 before he even got into a serious relationship. It benefits him to be more experienced in life and be more experienced in overall interactions with women, because if she's looking at him for leadership and he has absolutely no clue what's going on because he's as inexperienced as her, they just gonna be like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to figure it out. And although it can work and people go together that way, it's a lot of cases where they just don't have the skill set and the tools necessary in order for them to be successful at this point in their life because they didn't have the necessary competence to create the confidence to move forward within that relationship. Men and women are not different, are not the same. That's like saying you teaching your daughters to make sure they get a great career so they can take care of their man. Double standards exist. We all acknowledge them. I don't understand why in this specific case people are making a complaint that it's so detrimental to society. If anything, let's talk about the people who abstain from sex their whole life and end up in lawsuits with little boys in the church. Well, let's talk about all the things that go wrong from people denying their sexual urges until it festers into something that's extremely toxic. I think that would be more of a better waste of a better utilization of your time. But I digress.
But you saying that as if we're telling men to abstain from marriage with that kind of point, saying they go all their life without having sex. That suggests that they're going all their life not even considering marriage, which includes sex. We're just trying to get in front of the having the premarital sex or having a promiscuous lifestyle, which is devastating. You agree that it creates dysfunction. I would rather the term you use to figure it out, a chicken with the head cut off. I think that's a safer situation to deal with than when they got their heads on their shoulders and they're having children when they're incapable of raising the kids, or they're susceptible to STDs, or just not even having any meaningful connection because of all the partners that have been with, or specifically the man.
think you got dropped off.
I understand where Marcus is coming from, and I would say I do agree with him to the extent of having the experience with women. Where I would say that I would disagree with him on is telling this young man that it's okay to sleep with all of these women, because now you're creating unnecessary situations that you can now find yourself in. You can go out and date multiple women and not have sex with them, and you would almost you would actually have more power and more control if you're remaining abstinent of not having sex with them, because now they don't have that tool. We all as men up here know, we all know that women will use the box against us, right? So if we can remove one level or one thing that will give them the one up, especially on young men that allow for it to control them, right? For young men that know, or young women that know that they can control young men with it. So I think if we tell young men that, hey, look, you should go out and get experience and understand how different women respond and react, and how to carry yourself amongst them. But don't just go out just having sex with all of them, because you then give away your power and your value. You're more valuable with that, with the less bodies that you have. So I agree with him to that extent, but
your time
that's
is
why
up, guys. All right, time is up. Go ahead, Hank.
So I don't understand is we okay with our young men going out and getting experience at everything in life, but when it comes to interacting with women, we want as less experience as possible. Yeah, that makes no sense. So it's 2025, and like I said on last Tuesday, these middle school man, we had a situation in elementary kid, 5th grader, had used condoms in their bathroom. We can't be naive and thinking that these kids are not doing it. They're gonna be peer pressure. Your young man, if you got a nice looking young man, a handsome son, he's gonna get pressure. Now, if you got some ugly ass offspring, and ain't nothing he can do about it, blame it on his goddamn daddy. But if he does, these women are gonna come at it. They're gonna pursue him, and even if they never do it, they still gonna use that box viz to tempt them, to persuade them, to move them. They could get all the way to marry, and their wives are going to be moving them with their box. So it doesn't. I'd rather my son to know and be knowledgeable of how to act around women, how to carry yourself around women. I'm not sitting there saying, I'm gonna say, son, go out there and knock down every whore or heifer or chick you can. No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm teaching my son is to make sure he protect himself. If the opportunity presents itself, make sure you know what to do. And if that young lady so happens to tell you no, you need to run and get up out the room. If you don't have the proper protection, you go take you a cold shower, squeeze one out, and call it a night. Don't go in there naked head taking penitentiary chances. I would never tell my son, my nephews, or anybody else's son to do such a thing. Black man, protect yourself at all times. Those are the words I say every time. And I believe that even young boys have to take that same model. You have to protect yourself. Don't get these heifers pregnant, because you don't know what you're going to be invested to.
Facts.
All right. Go ahead, Sweeney.
Can't that be taught without them having sex?
No, we're gonna ask questions. We'll have a segment for that, but just go ahead.
I don't have a monologue.
Okay. Go ahead, Law.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to get in on that, because I mean, we flipped this conversation into something that nobody said. I know I didn't say anything about going out and hitting as many as you can, and this, that, and the other. That's not something I've ever said. What I said was, and I was very clear about, is when you get out here, you operate with respect and protect yourself, right? because we do know that these opportunities are going to present themselves to someone of, honestly, my son or my nephew's caliber. I know they are going to be quality individuals because that's what they're coming up under. So that's going to be something that's presented to them. So all you can really do is show them how to protect themselves. It's no different than teaching a boy how to fight, right? You know what I'm saying? You're not telling him run out there and get in a bunch of fights, but we know it might happen. So you better make sure you're protected. You dig what I'm saying? It's no different. And I don't tell my daughter anything different, but I also make sure she understands her value. You understand what I'm saying? Because as adults in this world right now, as it stands, these things are going to be presented to them. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking from experience, and I hate when people throw this, oh, wait till you marry, yada, 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 but you can't say you've done it and you don't know anybody else that's done it. So when we put these unrealistic viewpoints on these children, now it's giving them room to want to lie to us, not want to be honest about what's going on and what they're feeling. They want to feel like they're ashamed if something does happen, even though we know we all did it. We were all there. Any man on this panel that got a woman or a wife, you hit it before you got married. And if you didn't, tell me somebody that didn't, I'll show you a liar. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. So that's it. That's all I got on it.
Okay. So if you guys want to ask questions, now you guys can.
Can't all that be taught without having sex? Like, because the previous show, Marcus didn't just say he would tell his son to protect himself. And I don't think anybody disagreed with telling our sons that they need to protect themselves. I think where the disagreement came in is Marcus specifically said he would teach his son to go out there and get it. He said he would teach his daughter to be Chaz, and he would teach his son to go out there and get it. So I don't understand where the sex aspect needs to be presented for them to have experience with women. You can talk to women. You can know how to speak to women. You can know how to treat women without actually introducing sex into it, especially with children.
So I got a young man that I was mentoring. He's in he's it's not, there's no such thing as pre-med, but he's going to school to be a doctor right now. Right? And we had a conversation. I've been knowing him since he was 12. We had a conversation about girls, and he was telling me, to your example, Sweeney, that he's been friends with girls his whole life, and what issue he's an attractive young man, about 6'1", 6'2", in shape. Women would say he's handsome, right? His number one issue is whenever he gets close with girls, they put him in the friend zone and keep him in the friend zone, and he keeps running into that. And that is, so you could be friends with women. That does not translate into how to garner attraction and then how to navigate within a relationship, because the dynamics between just friendship and a relationship are completely different.
So how does sex play a factor into that? You could still teach all of that without sex. You can teach someone how.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So the first time a lot of young men get sex, they be head over heels in love with this woman.
Isn't that the same for women? The first time women have sex, they tend to be head over heels for the guy that they've been with. Because I remember him saying,
hold on, Sweeney. Doesn't that further make the point that you should have sex with the one you want to marry? Because ideally, when you get married, the person you have sex with, you want to be head over heels for, right?
Ideally, yeah, ideally, but we talking about ideas or reality.
But if you're having multiple sexual partners and you desensitize that feeling, you downgrade it over the many bodies you have. You take away that. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, is that a opinion based on experience, or is that theology right now?
I'm just speaking to what was just said. Somebody said that you would be head over heels. You would be head over heels the first time you get sex. What I'm saying is, doesn't that strengthen the case that the person you want to have sex with first is the one you marry? Because the love will be at its ultimate point. You get what I'm saying?
I understood the question, but my question on that was, is that being based on what you've experienced from your reality, or is that being based on a theology that you are pushing?
I would say it's based on both. I would say there's statistics that also back it up. Me personally, I think when you first do something, when you first do anything in life that result in a dopamine hit, I think at that point you would get maximum satisfaction, and you will always try to replicate that experience the second time, the third time, the fourth time, fifth, but you never get it the first time, which further strengthens the point that the one you want to lay down with is the one you want to marry.
No.
Is the
So,
one that you first laid. Go ahead, Hank. My bad.
Yeah, look, man, you fall heads over heels with that first little girlfriend you had in elementary. You know what I'm saying? The first one that circled yes when you asked, do you like me? Yes or no. Now, I may be showing my age when I make that statement. Some of you cats may not never experience that. Shout out to y'all. But you fall in then. I mean, just because you look, the first time I ever had sex at the age of 15, I didn't know what the shit I was doing. I mean, it felt better my second and third time because by then I knew exactly how to do it. The first time was like just a quick fix. It was 2 minutes. God damn it, it was over. So I really didn't get to enjoy it like I wanted to. So that didn't mean anything to me. But that second and third time, like, oh shit, okay, we here. I understand. But I don't think it's to that point where it's going to ruin society. That's people's mindset is what's wrong with today's society. You got people who are virgins who are really messed up and hate men, who've never been with a man and can hate men. You got these bulldaggers talking about they can't stand men, never been with a man. So how can we just put all of the issues we're dealing with on sex?
Which group do you think has the biggest issue with men? Women who have no experience with men, or women who have experienced men? Because I would argue, anytime we've been in this space for 5 years. For 5 years, we've been sitting here, and I will make the argument that majority of the women that we've heard have issues with men have had relationships with men. They weren't virgins who ain't never experienced a man before, by and large. In fact, statistically, they say that that virgin couples tend to have the most lasting relationships, tend to have the most lasting. Their relationships tend to last longer. They tend to be more satisfied sexually within their marriage. They tend to have an overall more positive outlook on their marriage. We know this, and it doesn't matter where you look, what you look up. The data remains the same that virgin couples tend to have better relationships and better outcomes than people who had sexual experience. There's no way that you can deny this. All you got to do is look it up.
What data are you referencing?
Hold on. Look, I want to just make sure you understand that it wasn't virgin marriages. It was people with less than a certain amount of partners.
It counted for all of them.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
For all of them.
So if you had one partner, you know what I'm saying? That's not necessarily saying a virgin.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to correct them. It counts for all of them. It counted people who were virgins, where their only sexual partner was their person that they married. It counted for people who may have had one or two partners.
And missing my point.
I'm not missing
listen
your
to
point.
Listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just because they ended up married, right, doesn't mean they didn't have premarital sex. That's always my point, right? You said, well, I'm saying it was more about the partners. How many partners? Not about when they actually decided to have sex.
I get what
you're
saying.
I'm saying.
I think
right.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying.
Right. So when we start saying, that's what I'm saying, bro. When we start telling them, oh, don't go out here and do this and do that, that's, to me, it's not realistic. The one person you hit might end up being your spouse, but we know good and well it's going to happen.
But the problem is the data that I'm referencing, they're talking about sexual partners. They're not talking about people that you may have dated within your life. They're specifically speaking on people who they married their first sexual partner. And they're talking about, and they juxtapose it to people where they had multiple sexual partners prior to, within the marriage, outside the marriage. People who have more sexual partners tend to be less satisfied within their marriages. They tend to have worse outcomes in their marriages. Mm-hmm. So the data actually supports that two people who come into a relationship virgins have a better outcome than two people who come into it experienced, or somebody coming into it with a lot of experience. And even if we tried to make the argument that okay, maybe this is just something for boys, well, then you might as well, when we try to make the argument about teaching your sons one thing and teaching your daughters another, then the same thing would apply to the women, because even women with sexual partners, the numbers, the reports are exactly the same as the men.
Yeah, and I
You
think
put
his
that graph back up, JR.
Yeah, y'all don't care
that
about
was
body.
funny. We're gonna have Darwin
y'all don't care
respond,
about
and then I'm gonna drop you guys down for a second. Go
So
ahead, Darwin.
the last thing I wanted to say to Law and Hank, first, Law, I think the argument you was coming from on the premarital sex was when you make the statement realistic, it's not realistic. When you make the statement realistic, you're aligning that on the behaviors of how society operates. Like that's not the likelihood of X, Y, and Z happening. And I think the point when we argue against it, we're arguing it from a principle standpoint, from a faith base or a spiritual religious standpoint, meaning that regardless of how society is operating in movement, we still like to hone in on what we believe so we can maintain our salvation. Because, you know what I'm saying, when we start sinning willingly with the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for your sins. And you can read that in James. I forgot what chapter. But the thing about Hank I wanted to address is he spoke from a angle where, oh, when you do it, you know, that you don't destroy society or whatever. And when he had sex, you know, it took him 2 minutes. He was good. You know what I'm saying? He was on to the next. It didn't mess him up mentally. But I think if you really want to have a genuine conversation, you got to kind of look at it from the lens of the person you having sex with as well, which is the women. So you got to kind of try to tap in. Okay, how did she feel after the 2 minutes? Did she want more than that? And you would often hear a lot of these guys that's had these experiences. When they talk about the past women they've been with, they always talk about how many women they hurt. You know what I'm saying? How many good women they led astray or you know what I'm saying, in the process of their so-called journey of development. So I think you got to look at it from the lens of the women. And I think maybe having a daughter would help you appreciate it. I don't have a daughter yet, but I would think that once you're able to hold your daughter and look at her in her eyes, you might be able to say like, well, damn,